Hi, everyone. This is Pat Jones. Welcome to Café IBTTA. My guest today is Jessica Carson. She's the Director of Operations for the E-470 Public Highway Authority. She's also a 2012 graduate of the IBTTA Leadership Academy and a member of the IBTTA Board. She's been active in IBTTA in other ways, including most recently, a Women in Tolling Meetup. Jessica, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Pat. Thanks for having me. So excited to join you today and happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. I am wearing my Apollo 11 commemorative shirt today in honor of the 50th anniversary last year of the Apollo 11 space moon landing. And I'm also wearing it in honor of the SpaceX launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida that's sending 2 US astronauts to the International Space Station. So Jessica, you know our first segment is always what's new, and I just want to do a couple of shout outs, and then I'm going to ask you what's new. So first of all, shout out to my wife Mia for the beautiful pink peonies over my shoulder. They came from our backyard. Also a shout out to members of the vendor community. They are in the process right now building a series of solution-based vendor forums. And the first one is going to happen in mid to late June. Also, the Maintenance, Engineering, and Roadway Operations Planning Group are pivoting to create a great online experience with our first virtual workshop. We have 10 hours of programming over 2 days in July during the normal dates when the maintenance workshop would have taken place. We have exhibitors, sponsors, meetups, and it's our first attempt at a digital experience. There will be no charge for IBTTA members to attend. So we hope you'll join us for our first virtual conference with 10 hours of programming. Well, Jessica, this is the What's New segment. What's new in your life? What's going on?
Well, online schooling ended last week, so we're less than a week into summer break, although it feels like we've been on summer break since March. But I believe they successfully graduated from the 1st and 4th grades. So I do expect if school resumes this fall, they'll be going into the 2nd and 5th grades, fingers crossed. Also successfully got them out of the house this morning with the nanny. So hopefully we will not have any ruckus behind us or any interruptions during our talk this morning. Otherwise, business as usual.
Well, that's great. Congratulations to the kids on their graduations. I want to remind our audience that there is a chat function on your screen. You can ask questions and post comments there, and we will get to them in a little while. So please look for that chat function. We always like your comments and suggestions. Before we get into that, I'd like to ask Jessica, so tell us a little bit about E-470 and how you found yourself there and what it is that you're doing now.
Sure. So I have been with the authority since 2007. That was during the Ed Delosier days. It's been a great organization since I started. We did go cashless in 2009, one of the first in the industry to lead that path. And then we've been under leadership of Tim Stewart since 2016 and have always focused on just taking care of the customer, providing excellent customer service. One of my things, I get asked what the E in E-470 means quite often. It actually means extended, but I never say that. I say it stands for excellence because since I've been there in the 12 years, the E has always been excellent, whether it's taking care of the customers, taking care of the staff, taking care of our vendors and our business partners. We strive for excellence. So it's a great organization to be part of and have held many roles within the organization, the operations department, everywhere from ops coordinator to marketing and communications manager to tolling services and now director of operations. I think you're muted, Pat.
Okay, sorry about that. I really like how you incorporate excellence into the very mission of the organization and use that as part of the name. It's a great way for people to really identify with the organization and excellence at the same time. And speaking of that, and sort of in a newsy way, There was an article in Axios today that was talking about remote work. And of course, we've all been working remotely for a number of weeks now. And they talk about the downsides of remote work. They say that less casual interaction with colleagues and over-reliance on Zoom, lack of in-person collaboration and longer hours could over time diminish the short-term gains. And why does this matter? The author of the article says, over time, goodwill with colleagues can break down without social offline interactions to reinforce the personal relationships. And new hires during this all remote period don't have the benefit of building those close connections. What do you think about that? How is that playing out at E-470 in your life? The whole remote connection thing and building goodwill and relationships with people.
That is one of the biggest challenges. It's timely because we are actually beginning the first phase of returning back to work on Monday. So we'll have the two teams, and a lot of the questions we've received are, well, we get how we're going to return back to work and who's returning back to work, but why? Why now? Why the time? And a big piece of that is the communication, is that face-to-face, the collaboration and brainstorming on an actual whiteboard versus Zoom meetings. I actually read an article this morning that sort of is the kind of ties into the article you read, and it's an oldie, and it was passed on to me by our IT director, but it's from the Harvard Business Review, April 2012 edition, but it's still very timely. It's called The New Science of Building Great Teams. And the big thing that focuses on are the three elements of communication, and that's energy, engagement, and exploration, which is very hard to do when you're remote. It's hard to get that face-to-face and get that energy and feed off each other. And so ultimately we are returning back to work now because although everything has been smooth and run really well remotely, it's time to get that face-to-face back. And we have hired a few new employees in the time since we closed in March. And we've never understand that the shaking of hands is probably a thing of the past, but maybe an elbow bump or at least an air high five with the new people and welcome them into the culture, because E-470 and Tim Stewart has worked really hard to build up that morale and build up that culture within our organization. So getting the teams back together to not only within their departments, but cross-departmental and really build on that. So I think it makes sense. It as great as remote is, there's something to be said about the face-to-face.
Let's talk a little bit more about the whole exploration concept of that and building morale. I know that building morale within an organization is really important to you. And you told me at one point that you use these affirmator cards. I think you first called them affirminator, like the Terminator, but they're affirmator cards. And they're a way for you to sort of break the ice and bring staff into the conversation and affirm what people are doing. Tell us more about that.
So they're actually something I got when we were still on site at the office, and I just never got around to breaking them out. It didn't seem necessary at the time, but as we spent more time apart from the team members and within our department, I started going through them at night and really started finding the messages in them helpful, and thought it was a way to bring back a little bit of that energy and a little bit of that fun to the Zoom meeting. So our departmental meetings, we do Zoom, so face-to-face every week. And when I first brought the cards, I got some eye rolls, but now I bring them out every week and I still get the eye rolls, but a big smile also. So I brought them to a few other meetings as well. I did bring one specifically for the Café IBTTA this morning. I do have my team meeting right after this, so they will get to see it twice today. So if they're watching, they will be rolling their eyes but smiling. Does have a unicorn with a bunny rabbit riding a rainbow. This is my affirmation card. The one for this group this morning is called Impermanence. And it gives you a little message on the back. It says, life is always changing and I drift easily through those changes, good and bad. As I drift through hard times, I can take comfort in knowing that I will leave them behind. As I drift away from good times, I take comfort in knowing that more will come my way. Impermanence is an equal opportunity non-entity. So I thought that was very timely for this because we are going through a very challenging time, work from home, remote, virtual meetings. It's very different for everyone, and some people are embracing it. Some people are really struggling with it. So just want to remind everyone that nothing's permanent. If this is a bad time for you, a good time will be coming. If you really enjoy this, then hey, maybe your boss will let you keep working from home. So I've found that bringing those cards has been helpful. You mentioned the women in tolling earlier, that the card I brought to that was flexibility, and it was all about wearing many hats. So the theme in that was just wearing many hats. And as things have changed, we're all required to wear larger hats, smaller hats, different hats, hats of all colors. And how we adjust to that is how determines how successful we'll be during these times.
Jessica, you've been a big organizer, a key player in creating the first Women in Tolling event, and you wore a hat to that event. Tell me a little bit more about that first Women in Tolling event that IBTTA put on.
Yes, it was fantastic. We had over nearly 100 supporters join the cast, and we broke out into 3 breakout sessions. We had the home work-life balance session, and everyone in that session wore green because green does represent balance. And so finding that balance of work and home life. And then I led a breakout session that was about communication and engaging your team. And that goes back to just finding new and fun ways and wearing new hats, whether it's the cheerleader of the group to keep everyone's spirits up. And so everyone in that breakout session did wear, or most of them wore a hat, and I changed hats several times throughout just to show, and I'll read the card. When plans take a turn and I find my colleagues suddenly asking me to change what I'm doing, who I am doing it with, or where, when, how it is being done, I accept the challenge and delight in proving how flexible I can be. I will wear whatever hat you throw at me, and I'm not even a hat person. So that was kind of the theme of our session, just showing that be adaptive, be flexible, and you will succeed. And then the third breakout session was all about the technical woes of this new life that we're living. So we had Snehal and Patty leading that, and then Mary was our moderator. It was a fantastic session that was well attended, great questions, great engagement. Our next one will be on the 1st. Based on unconscious bias, and will be another wonderful session. So encourage everyone to join. It's Women in Tolling and their supporters. So any and all are welcome.
Beautiful. So I'm going to go to, we've got a couple of questions come in here, and I'm going to go to one. Let's see. This is from Mike Davis, and he says, how is E-470 handling opportunities for interactions with consultants and vendors they may not have a relationship with already, understanding that face-to-face meetings and visits are challenging with current social distancing restrictions?
It's a great question. We have continued engaging with new partners. We recently held a Zoom meeting just to gather requirements and look at the scope and the level of effort to bring in. Our team has not went away from our project management and our EPMO system. We continue to go through our intake process. If we are approached by a new vendor, we have our form that is filled out. We evaluate it as we did when we were in the office. It might be harder to have the face-to-face, but we still are meeting and exploring new opportunities and finding ways to work those into the schedule, whether it's near or looking at it 2021. But E-470, as I mentioned, is about excellence. And so finding new partners and finding new ways to build those relationships is part of continuing that excellence. Great question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike Davis, for a great question. So you mentioned earlier, states are beginning to open up, depending on what state you're in, phase 1, phase 2, wherever it is, 25% capacity, 50% capacity, et cetera. You guys, you've been working from home for a number of weeks, number of months now. I think most of the E-470 staff that have the ability to do that have, but you're starting, you're looking ahead, thinking about reopening. What does that look like to you as a challenge? What kinds of things are you thinking about?
A few different challenges. As I mentioned, we will be starting to go back on Monday. We are starting a phased approach. We have broken into two teams for this first time. So every department is split into two teams. Team 1 will be there on Monday and Wednesday, Team 2 Tuesday and Thursday, and then all remote work on Fridays. And we're doing that just with E-470 Authority. Our partner WSP, who runs all of our call center, image processing, courts fulfillment, we will keep those teams at home for at least 4 to 6 weeks while we gather the information and understand how the new norm looks, and make sure that there aren't any repercussions with returning, and get our state of affairs all figured out. And then we will gradually bring back some of the WSP team. And we different in the future. Image processing may be something that we don't bring back into the office. Call center, maybe we'll only bring back 50%. It could be used as a schedule bid or an incentive for those that do want to work from home. So it'll be a phased approach. The biggest challenge, I think, for me is just making sure that my team feels comfortable with returning, because there is a fear factor with being around people. We've been home. We closed the office on Friday, March 13th, and we had the entire call center and image processing home by that following Tuesday. So we have been apart and doing the virtual for quite a while. So just ensuring that my team feels comfortable and that there isn't any hit to morale, and that we're keeping things fun and giving them a purpose for being at the office. That was asked of the why now, and I mentioned that earlier, but there is merit in being face-to-face. And so my challenge that I want to take on is, how do I keep things creative? How do I make it fun? How do I make sure that them being in the office is meaningful to them, and that they are getting something from being there versus what they would from their living room or kitchen table? So I'm going to be wearing my creative hat for the next month, just trying to keep everyone engaged, and then really work on exploration, mentioned in the 3 E's earlier. A big part of that is exploring outside of your department. So now, even though we've had the Zoom meetings with IT and finance and engineering, we can at least wave and walk by and let people know that we are there and there is a face, and start having those socially distanced collaborative meetings with the brainstorming and get the teams working and cohesive again. So there's going to be challenges, but I think there's going to be a lot of benefits to being at the office as well.
You've developed quite a number of watchwords or maybe themes to build upon as you go through this transitional period. And I liked your emphasis on the notion of impermanence, that it isn't impermanence can feel unsettling to people and a sense of uncertainty, but recognizing that it's not going to last forever is one of the things that can help you lift you up. I was thinking about in my own meditation practice, one of the guides I follow says, imagine yourself, maybe you're in a situation where it's a rainy day and it's really gloomy, but imagine that you're in an airplane and you're flying above the clouds and there's blue sky and sunshine there. And you can just remind yourself that there's always blue sky and sunshine all the time. Maybe you just can't see it. So yeah. I really like that.
Yeah, I do too.
So Farzan Ahmed, one of our regular viewers from the Ohio Turnpike, he says, I love the affirmation card. It's upbeat and establishes a consistent message you want to send. Have any of your team members also picked up this habit from you? And I'll add a further question. I know that you are a big believer in communication and communication skills and consistency. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So the first question, I don't know that anyone in my direct team has picked it up, but after the Women in Tolling conference, several people asked for the link to those. You can find them on Amazon. They're really quick and easy, and there's hundreds to choose from. So I know other people have picked up on them. And then going to the consistency and the communication, since I did start early on at E-470 in the marketing and communications space, I have always been a huge believer that communication is key. It's the key to everything, especially as we're going through this challenge and then coming out to a new phase. A clear, concise, consistent message from top at every level within the organization. And that consistency is key. You can't push out what it's going to look like or how it's going to look like once and then expect everyone to feel comfortable. It's that reiterating the facts, recommunicating how you're going to return, what that looks like, here's why it's okay, here's how we're doing it, here's why we're doing it, and making sure all the directors are saying the same message to their teams and all the managers are communicating that with their teams so that everyone's hearing the same thing. And it just calms the concern a little bit if they feel like the leadership is being transparent and open and sharing everything when they can, as soon as they can.
We have a new guest today. Good morning, all. This is my first time joining your meetings. What's the agenda for today? And this comes from Carrie K. Holness, who says, I'm from the Toll Authority of Kingston, Jamaica. Well, Carrie K., welcome to Café IBTTA. And I'll just say that Café IBTTA is a weekly meetup where members of IBTTA can get together to for easy conversation. We strive to be interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. That's really our agenda here, and to talk about some issues that are happening in the toll industry and the lives of people that are really important to us. So, Carrie K., welcome to the program, and we hope you'll keep coming back.
Welcome.
The Leadership Academy, I think, has probably been a big influence in your life. You're a 2012 graduate of the Leadership Academy. You know Dr. Barbara Gannon, who's been leading the program since the beginning in 2008. We had a bunch of Leadership Academy alumni meetups yesterday. Tell me a little bit about the Leadership Academy and its influence on you and people that you know.
Sure. Yes, thank you, Cheryl and Wanda, for organizing all the reunions yesterday. I did follow up with Cheryl, and we had well over 100 people participate in those, some classes a little fuller than others. But yes, I did graduate 2012. It was a huge pivotal moment in my career. I attended as an operations coordinator very, very early on, before the program really had legs under it. And it 100% changed how I viewed myself, how I viewed my career progression. And it was much more about building those relationships and those career long connections with your counterparts, not necessarily learning just how engineering does things or finance does things. It was much more about the people and the relationships. I took away so many close relationships. I have so many people I can call, and importance of continuing those connections, which is why I think the Leadership Academy Alumni Association is so important to be part of, because not only do you have your graduating class, but you extend that network so much larger and have so many more people that you can count on or ask questions. And I'm very proud to say that one of my fellow graduates is our current president, Sam Johnson. So it's really nice to have him as my fellow alum from 2012. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I'm a big advocate for the Leadership Academy. Anytime there's someone new in the organization, E-470 now has a list this long of people that want to get on, but we can only send one a year. So we'll be supporting it for the next decade and then some, because it is such a valuable resource and event that IBTTA hosts every year. And I couldn't have taken away more from my time there.
That's great. I know most all of the Leadership Academy graduates that I know, I know all of them, I've met all of them, say that it's a life-changing experience, that it gives them what Dr. Barbara Gannon calls a kitchen cabinet, a group of people that they can rely on for the rest of their lives. I remember John Keller from the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. He was a member of the class of 2019, and he said, I feel like I now have a new group of 35 best friends that I can call on at any time. So yeah, it really is a great program.
It is.
So here's a question from Karen Delgado. Will this program be recorded? I'm listening for someone else, and I think she would like to listen when she has the opportunity. And the answer is yes, it's being recorded. You can watch it afterwards on YouTube and IBTTA's YouTube channel. And Karen, I hope you're getting something out of this as well. And while I'm talking about Karen, who's listening for somebody else, one of the big efforts that IBTTA is engaged in right now is gathering information about more people who work in our member agencies and companies. So we have a group of about 5,000 people that we regularly communicate with. And probably most of the people who are watching Café IBTTA today are from that group of 5,000. But there's probably hundreds or even thousands more people within agencies all over the world and our consultants and vendors that don't know anything about IBTTA, but could really benefit from this programming. So we've reached out to the heads of all of our agencies to ask them to provide us names of people who are in charge of the chief communications officer and the chief technology officer and others, people that we may not know within the organization. So we would ask you to please help us with that. We're going to have a couple of interns this summer who are going to be on the phone calling our members and asking for contact information on people that we're not reaching, but who could really benefit, especially during this time of the pandemic when people are remote from one another. This is really going to become a huge platform for IBTTA to present content. All right, let's see. This is from Tom Delaney. Fun tolling tidbit for today. Thousands of people taking toll roads to the Space Coast today to see the historic manned launch at Kennedy Space Center. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Tom. So, Jessica, one other thought. You are a new member of the IBTTA Board of Directors. Tell us a little bit about your interest in serving on the IBTTA board, and what about your experiences so far?
Yeah, I was interested in joining because I wanted to get a much broader exposure to our industry as a whole. I feel like at the 12 plus years with E-470, I've really understood my area in Colorado, and tolling and attending conferences do get exposure to a lot of other areas, but I felt really interested in being at that table with the leaders in our industry and talking about the issues that we face nation worldwide and coming up with solutions together. It's been a great experience. January was the first board meeting I attended, and I was amazed at how inclusive the entire board was. We had several new members, but everyone that spoke up, everyone that had a say or an opinion was heard equally as the board members that have been on there for a decade. And so it was really refreshing to know that just because I was technically a newbie, it still mattered, my thoughts and my opinions. And I just appreciate how collaborative the board is and how open they are to recommendations or suggestions. Not this is how we've always done things, so it's how we're going to continue, but just open to how can we be better. And that's really refreshing.
Jessica, what you say makes me think of something Samuel Johnson, the president of IBTTA, said when he was the guest on Café IBTTA. He's the CEO of the Transportation Corridor Agencies. And he said, I think the biggest asset that IBTTA has going for it is the family nature of IBTTA, that people feel committed and dedicated to one another as family members and want to support them and lift them up. And I think that's something that you're seeing in the board of directors.
So true.
Dermot McHeverly from Dublin in Ireland says, I would be interested in knowing whether the panelists foresee that as a consequence of COVID, that people's working patterns will change, and how will that affect our industry in the long run? And will it affect how we operate and manage our projects? What do you think, Jessica? There's a lot in there.
There is a lot in there. We've thought about it. We've thought about it a lot, both from the internal staff and then our customers, because with this world we've been thrust into, virtual learning, virtual meetings has become widely adopted. And so what does that mean for people you recruit? Is that going to be an expectation as part of the work, as that work home life balance? And can people start working from home half time? Is that now an acceptable way to get your hours in? Does that impact productivity from an E-470 standpoint? I don't think it has, but every industry could be different. And then you look at the revenue and the projections and the customer side. If we are changing how we do business, sorry, if we are changing how we conduct business, then that could change the driving patterns. If more people are working from home, there's more virtual meetings versus in-person meetings, then that changes our traffic. 30% of our customers are to and from the airport. So if conferences reduce and traveling reduces, then that automatically reduces our traffic. So it's hard to know what the new norm or what the future looks like. We have our financial advisors doing a lot of projections and doing a lot of research and studying so that we can get a better idea of what that might look like, but it's very unknown. So we'll just have to be flexible and adapt to how the future looks.
I think that's a really good attitude. I think the effects of COVID-19 and the pandemic and the shelter at home and the response to that and the transition is going to vary from organization to organization. And I think your advice to stay flexible and try to adapt is really helpful. It's an impermanence thing here again, but just remember your flexibility and your adaptability tools. Well, we're getting close to the finish, and I just want to make a couple of promos here. We have a new series called Brave New World. It's looking at the future with influencers from outside of the tolling industry. And first up, tomorrow, Thursday, May 28th, from 3 to 5 p.m., we have Sean Thompson, a world-renowned surfer and inspirational speaker. He's sponsored by HMTB, and we encourage everyone to attend and bring your family members. It's a message for everybody in the family. Then, as Jessica mentioned, next Monday, June 1st, the Women in Tolling are presenting their second meetup. This one features Tracy Brown and is focused on unconscious bias. It's a 90-minute interactive session and should be very valuable. Space is limited, so register now. And then we encourage you to go to ibtta.org/events to see all of our upcoming events. We're developing a new calendar, so please send us your ideas for new meetups and webinars. We will have a lot of content. We already have a lot of content there, and you'll see much more. So Jessica, thank you so much for being with us on the show today. And to everybody, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road next Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, Pat.